Life happens. People come in who weren't on the schedule. You interact with people on the road to work. The person at Quick Trip is having a shit day, and it's your fault for coming in there. There's adjustments that need to be made. Going back to the game analogy, what do you do at halftime, especially if you're down? Make halftime adjustments. And if we go back to the episode where it's just go, just do it, just Shia LaBeouf it, just go. That's what the halftime adjustment is. Things aren't going to go to plan. You have to be able to make halftime adjustments. Duh. No shit. Okay. Can you? Do you?
What the hell's going on out here?
What do you think? Like the new digs? Remember that one episode where I was like, just go, just do it. You're going to have to get started sometime, right? Here's the start. Part 2. There's a lot of part 2s going on. Seriously, like the first episode was made up, basically. Some dude in a tie. Second episode, some dude in a construction zone. Look at us now. Goddamn, I'm George Jefferson. Moving on up to the east side, to a deluxe podcasting studio in a chiropractic office. Nailed it. Man, like a fucking songbird. I'm a songbird of a generation. Dr. James Taylor. Fueled by spite. What do you do before the game starts? You have a plan. You've laid it out. You've studied your opponent. You've studied their habits, their weaknesses, their traits, the stuff they do routinely, the stuff they do repeatedly, so you know them. That's what your day is. Your day is your opponent. Let's say your day is the game, but the people you come across, people you interact with, good, bad, or indifferent, are your opponent. The better you know your opponent, the more you study your opponent, the more likely you are to succeed. It just makes sense, right? You've got to have a plan. You've got to have a game plan. We go back to the operation of my chiropractic office. Pre-shift, we go over the schedule. We know everybody who's on the schedule for that shift. We know what's wrong with them. We know where they are in their treatment plan. We go over what their last visit was about. We go over what our plan is for this visit. We have a game plan. For this podcast, I have an outline of what I'm going to talk about. I have a game plan. There's something to be said for winging it. But it's a whole lot easier to wing it when you have a plan on how to wing it. But what happens? Everything. Shit happens. Life happens. People come in who weren't on the schedule. You interact with people on the road to work. The person at Quick Trip is having a shit day. And it's your fault for coming in there. There's adjustments that need to be made. Going back to the game analogy, what do you do at halftime, especially if you're down? Make halftime adjustments. Got to be able to work on the fly. And if we go back to the episode where it's just go, just do it, just Shia LaBeouf it, just go. That's what the halftime adjustment is. That's what you do in your lunch break, right? That's what your previous episode, going back to the gratitude alarm. Those are halftime adjustments. Things aren't going to go to plan. You have to be able to make halftime adjustments. Duh. No shit. Okay. Can you? Do you make halftime adjustments? Game time adjustments? How do you know when to make halftime adjustments? How do you know when to make adjustments in general? It's what's going on up here. It's when you notice that you're in the shit, as they say. How do you know that? Going back to a previous episode again. You see, this stuff is all stringing together. You've got to know yourself, right? You've got to be able to understand, to acknowledge when you're in a shit headspace. So what do you do when you make that realization? Make an adjustment. When I notice that I'm in need of an adjustment, in need of a halftime adjustment, in need of a change in game plan, I personally will go back into myself, and literally, like one of the I guess telltale signs is if I'm no longer talking. Like I guess I've been called an omnivert. I am an extroverted introvert or an introverted extrovert. I am an omnivert. If I'm in a comfortable or familiar situation or setting, I'm loud, I'm boisterous, depending on the company. possibly crass. What? Yeah, weird, right? If I'm in an unfamiliar setting, I'm quiet. I am a wallflower. I stand on the edge. I'm working on fixing that, but it's me. It is what it is, as they say. But again, what it is can be changed. But if I notice that if I'm in a familiar setting and I'm quiet, I'm withdrawn, I'm not interacting, that's me in a funk. That's me in need of a halftime adjustment. So what I do, it's even if it's a familiar situation, familiar surroundings, I still have to pull myself out of that and figure out exactly what's happening and why. Now, one of my superpowers, talked about again in the previous episodes, my ability to make things happen with my mind, is the ability to let things just roll off my back, to wash away, potentially bury it deep down inside so it turns into cancer one day. Who knows? Time will tell. But can you do that? Can you let it go? It's a gift, but it's a gift that I've earned. It's a gift that I had to practice. We all know letting things go is not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but it's got to be something that's done over and over and over again. And one of the best ways that I have found to do it for myself is by telling myself that I forgive myself. And once I do that, I don't have to do it again. But what about these thoughts that creep back in your head? They come back up. You know what you do? You tell yourself, hey, I've already forgiven myself. I don't need to forgive myself again. That's a halftime adjustment. Where'd you get such a good idea? Got it from a book. You know how to read? Slowly. Comprehension is subpar. So I have to read and reread. But these are adjustments that need to be made. These are halftime adjustments. The thing is, at the beginning, these adjustments take time. You almost have to convince yourself. But then as you do it more often, they take less time. They work faster. This idea is not my own. Also, future pacing. Another episode is going to be called "Steal Everything You Can." But this idea was stolen. It comes from a book. So here's the book. It's called "The Millionaire's Seminar" by Foster Hibbard. Right there. It's given me by a former coach of mine, Dr. Tori Robeson of Winner's Edge. So we go to the spot in here, and what he's doing, he's talking about forgiving other people. I mean, hell, and that's a halftime adjustment too. Let's see here. Look at the other person in the eye. Tell them exactly why you feel this great resentment. What is it that you feel that he or she did to you in a nutshell, in a summary, in just a sentence or two? Now continue to look that person in the eye and say silently, call the person by name, saying, I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you. Sometimes that person is yourself. Sometimes you do dumb shit that you hold on to that you resent yourself for. All right, open your eyes, please. If ever again that particular person crosses your mind and you feel a cringe, a tension, a sense of resentment, quickly remind yourself, I don't have to forgive him ever again. I have already forgiven him. I have already forgiven him. I have already forgiven him. Spoiler alert, sometimes I am my him. One of the things that I have to forgive myself for way more often than I should is feeling stupid while refereeing my sister's let's say it was her 6th grade basketball game. There's this girl in my sister's grade. Her name was Jacqueline Arns, formerly Jacqueline Arns, now Jacqueline Bammert. A hell of a ball player. And she was she was the toughest girl on the court in six. Well, she's always the toughest girl on the court. But what they would do, they would inbound the ball to her. She would dribble up the court, come up the sideline, and they'd just 6th grade girls basketball, and they'd try and draw the charge, and she would just put her shoulder down and just fucking run him over. And I didn't know. So if my sister's 6th grade, that puts me in 8th grade. I knew the rules of the game well enough to ref a 6th grade girls basketball game. So she did it and you ran this girl over, and the parents are pissed. And I don't even remember if I blew a whistle. And then it did it again. Inbound to Jacqueline. She runs on the court, dribbling, puts her shoulder down, boom, takes this other girl out. And I call a foul or something. And I'm like, hey, if you do it again, it's going to be a technical. And so she does it again. And I tear up. And then I give the opposing team, the non-offending team, free throws. So if anyone's a basketball aficionado, you know that after you get the free throws, you also get the ball back. Well, I didn't do that. I gave the ball back to Jacqueline's team. They inbounded the ball to her. She does it again. And I just let it slide because I'm like, I don't know what the fuck to do now. So for whatever reason, I would say about once a year, I am, as this is being recorded, 39 years old. So about once a year, give or take, since 1998, I am embarrassed that I called a technical. Not that I called the technical on a sixth grade girl, but that I gave her team the ball, that I didn't apply the rule properly. So again, as a 39-year-old man, I'm like, God damn it, why did I do? Well, I already forgave myself for that. But so this is a this forgiving people, forgiving others, forgiving yourself, and reminding yourself that you've forgiven them. You don't have to do it again. It's a lifelong practice, apparently. This is a really convoluted story to talk about halftime adjustments. But again, this whole podcast is convoluted. This whole podcast draws on itself. It draws on things that we've already talked about, and it sets us up for things we're going to talk about. Look at this sweet ass podcast studio. This is still going to be improved upon, but certainly better than it was though when I was sitting on an iPhone because I decided to just go because I knew that I was going to make a halftime adjustment. What is this halftime adjustment? This podcast studio. And I use the term studio loosely. But these are also adjustments that you literally have to make on a day-to-day basis. Some of these things are adjustments that are going to be planned out in the future, things that are going to happen but can't happen yet. But then again, some of these adjustments are things that you have to notice, and these are going to be the harder ones, that you have to notice that you're in the shit, that you need to be able to pull yourself out and make an adjustment. If you notice yourself leaving passive aggressive Facebook statuses, you probably need to make an adjustment. You're better than that. Hintity hint hint. But again, these are all things that happen up here. And again, time from a previous episode. When I say it here, I'm pointing to my head for those of you not watching this on video. These are things that happen up here in your head, and you have to be cognizant enough and present enough to understand that you're fucking it up. And when you make that realization, you have to be cognizant enough and present enough and have the willpower to pull yourself out. Because again, pulling out's the safest method. Figure out what the hell you're doing, why you're doing it, and then practice letting that shit go. It takes time. God, this is fun. This is fun. I really like doing these. I hope you guys are getting something out of it. You will learn more here by accident than elsewhere by design. Again, as long as you can follow the bouncing ball. Right here, fueled by spite. I don't even know what the fuck this episode was. I did set that alarm. Hey, catch us next time. Like, share, love, tell your friends. You want to be on the podcast? Slip into our DMs.